We're going to read this article real quick, guys. This is an article from Paul Tassi here. Destiny 2 hits an unfortunate content vault milestone. This week, Destiny 2 hit a milestone that is not exactly one worth celebrating. The game has reached a point where the missions and expansions and DLCs Bungie put in the content vault have been in there longer than they were in the game in the first place. Oh my God. I didn't even know. Did y'all even know that's today? The game has reached a point where the missions and expansions and DLCs Bungie put in the content vault have been in there longer than they were in the game in the first place. Now, for those wondering what we're talking about, the DCV, the Destiny Content Vault, this was pitched to us a number of years ago. And essentially, what we were told was that the game was becoming so large that Bungie would actually have to start putting old missions, old expansions, old items, and put them in said vaults. Now, we were also told that these things would go into the vaults and maybe they would return in some way, but it would be evolved and it would be better than ever. But what this really led to was a number of our maps that we had, especially like PvP maps, gone. Campaign missions completely gone, which is why for like a new player coming into the game, things are very jarring because they don't get the seamless experience that we got when we first came into the game. They're just kind of just thrown into things. And when you don't have ABC, instead you just start at like, you know, M. You see where the problem is, guys. But this right here, the fact that this stuff has been in the DCV longer than it was in the game, that's crazy. As in, there have been 1,161 days where the content was out of the Destiny 2 vault to the Beyond Light expansion, which was now released 1,162 days ago, as of yesterday, as tallied by Destiny Bulletin. The removal was actually written into the story, with pyramid ships arriving and erasing 4 planets' moons from existence, though temporarily in some cases, as Mars and Titan have both returned in bits and pieces as per the storyline, but not as full patrol spaces. Like I said a second ago, we were told that things would leave the game, go into this Destiny content vault, and then return better. That did not happen. Mars and Titan, none of those came back better. Can we all agree, though, that neither one of those locations have never come back better, despite being told they would come back better? And I understand, like, maybe things have evolved since then, but I would argue say nothing has come back better. So the whole narrative surrounding this stuff is going away to come back better was a lie. It really was a lie. 4 campaigns, base game, DLC, and expansion, 9 strikes, 5 raids and layers, 8 crucible maps, 2 gambit maps, 6 destinations, 15 seasonal storylines, 2 events, 17 seasonal activities, 3 exotic missions. That hurts. Some of the best exotic missions ever. 27 unique exotic quest lines. Dude, so many things just got shelved and just put into the, the kiosk. And 1 tribute hall. The only personal area we had in the game, the only area that could have been expanded on as our own personal hub, got put away. Where are they? Where did they go? Are they in Marathon? And look, I get lulled into this because it's been so long, but you will notice it more, especially seasons like this season, when it's going to be a 6-month-long season. And we're playing the same strikes over and over for Grandmasters. All right, let's continue. A small handful of things have returned, like a couple of the Crucible maps, but generally the list stands. I'm curious to know what exactly is done here when things leave and come back. What is being done other than it appearing to be a copy pasta? Now, Bungie has indicated they will bring a few other things back, like at least one of the Gambit maps and a couple of the exotic missions for the Rotator. There's also some guessing about Bungie maybe bringing back some of the Destiny 2 raids, as there's just one more Destiny 1 raid to put in Destiny 2 at this point, rather than Machine. But we don't know for sure if Bungie has plans to keep reprising raids after that, or even after the final shape period. If you look at the roadmap in the episodes, there's nothing there labeling a raid. It looks like, you know, we're still getting the normal cadence of dungeons, but it doesn't look like we're going to get a reprise raid. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm almost certain King's Fall, Vault of Glass, and Crota's Inn, the raid was a surprise, as in we didn't know which raid was coming back, but we knew a raid was coming. The point I'm trying to make with this, guys, is that I don't think in the year of the final shape, we're going to get a reprise raid. To be honest with you, with things getting backed up, with the fact that final shape is releasing in June instead of February, with Marathon supposed to be rolling out next year, I actually feel like Bungie in general is going to pivot to get Marathon out the door, and that's what the team is going to be solely focused on after the final shape comes out. I previously said that the content vault was a turning point for the game, probably its biggest. The 2 main issues were that A, it removed content that players had explicitly paid for, including when they bought a box copy of the game at launch, and B, it erased the vast majority of substantive content that could onboard new players during the game's switch to being free to play. Out of all the things I ever hear people say, like even our old videos or like our Destiny 1 video, I'll get comments about why a person quit the game. And the number one comment that people say why they quit the game, it's not cheaters, it's not PvP balance, it is always sunsetting. It's true that technically in Bungie's terms of services, they said they can remove content at any time. So there isn't exactly some class action lawsuit to file for this. But it's also the case that it's hard to think of any other game that has done something like this, removing this much paid content from the game, literally years worth. Even in events like WoW's Cataclysm, it's not the same situation as less was cut and much of it was just reshuffled elsewhere. Here in Destiny 2, this stuff was just gone. And later, they tried to split the difference by doing things like only deleting half the Forsaken expansion and continuing to sell the other half. Now they've promised they wouldn't delete any more expansion content from here. I would hope not. Bungie, of course, has said repeatedly that this was technically necessary for the game. That behind the scenes, managing this much content while trying to update things like the engine and lighting and other changes was not sustainable. And players have said that much of this content wouldn't be played much now anyway. But I just think a lot of this is the principle. We know Bungie can bring things back. We've seen them reinstate pieces of Mars and tie in with old assets. They essentially brought back every piece of the original Leviathan raid for content in Season of the Haunted, which was then deleted again. I do understand that sure, seasonal content can probably be rotated out, though I think some of the best content should stay, albeit Bungie has only done that with Battlegrounds. But the base campaign, the first 2 DLCs, Forsaken, 5 raids and layers, some of the most classic exotic missions in the game's history. The goal here should have been that if there was a technical reason to remove this stuff, then there should have been some focus on bringing it back over time, even in bits and pieces. Instead, Bungie has focused on either new content or reprised Destiny 1 content only, which in some sense I understand, but again, it's the principle. Many players have never forgiven Bungie for deleting all this, and from the outside perspective, it's a truly bizarre turn of events that again has really not been seen in any other game like this. Even if it's obviously true that it would have been a lot of work and perhaps that content wouldn't be played as much as new offerings, I would view this as a loyalty building exercise, the way we've seen with other redemption stories across gaming, from Final Fantasy XIV to No Man's Sky to most recently Cyberpunk. It's an altered situation. Sure, as Cyberpunk wasn't deleting its base campaign, but rather doing other fixes, but it's the same mission. Get players back on your side. And I think it's pretty clear that has not happened. When it comes to the justification for the vault and the fact that all that content remains rotting inside. When Paul lays it all out, you're able to kind of like wrap your head around everything. And look, man, I mean, I was there when sunsetting was first presented. I don't think any of us thought that things would take this long to ever return. But, you know, when you're sitting in a room with developers who are laying out the technical limitations and why they have to do what they have to do, you see both sides. My question, and I don't believe this question was ever asked, is the technical limitations there because of old gen consoles? That would, of course, be a huge revenue hit for Bungie to not sell to those old gen players. But is that what's actually holding things back? And like the final shape is still being made for old gen consoles, right? The Xbox One, the PlayStation 4. Here's the thing: none of the things that have come back to us have come back better. And then not only that, none of us could choose what we wanted to stay. I don't think any of us would have voted, had we been given the opportunity, voted for Tribute Hall to go away. I don't think any of us would have voted for our exotic missions to go away, whether that be Whisper or Outbreak, or many of the other exotic quest lines. Maybe it's too far-fetched to believe that we had a say in that, but it would have been nice to have had some sort of say in that, instead of, you know, Bungie just removes things that they want to remove. And I understand that narratively they made it work, because they had the pyramid ships show up, and it was, I guess, a cool enough event where you saw the planets being taken. But even that almost seems retcon to me. You know, in our minds at the time, we thought these pyramid ships, they were taking, oh my God, they're using the darkness, they're taking these planets from us. They must be invading in some sort of way, right? And then it turns out, no, there's nothing inside the ships. There's no alien race, there's no nothing. So what the hell were they doing? Pyramid ships just parked above each one of these places, hit them with some paracausal icky, and that's it. And that's what caused them to jump into the DCV. Just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So the narrative is already kind of a stretch in itself. Since the very beginning, I've been against sunsetting. But even if all of us were against it, Bungie was obviously going to commit to this. You know, this past year, we've seen like Destiny like truly breaking. I would say the first half of this year, we had some major problems. The game was literally breaking. And then some of us were sitting there scratching our head wondering like, wow, could it actually be because things are not getting vaulted and everything is remaining in the game so far, and that's what's causing issues. All I'm saying is that none of these issues were even an issue when Bungie had Activision. I don't know if this is more of a technical issue or a money issue, maybe both, but I never even heard of this problem. This issue in sunsetting was never presented to us until post-Activision, and then suddenly it's a problem. And like what was pitched to me and others was like the game was becoming too big, and that's literally just in its gig size. But then you look across the board and you see games like Call of Duty, which are massive. And I remember at the time the number was being kind of like thrown around on what that number is, like what the number would be that you would want to stay under, you know, and whether it's Microsoft or Sony. It seemed like some of the attention was more on Sony, and like Sony is the one that has like these limitations, and maybe you have to pay so much more when you exceed a certain level, a certain size. Considering that Bungie's literally in bed with Sony now, you figure they could rectify that problem. The point is, things left the game with the promise that it would come back better in some way, and that from a technical standpoint, and it coming back as better content. And those things have not happened. Things have come back, and the game has continued to break in areas. And the first half of Lightfall really showed how bad the game can break. And the content has definitely not come back in a better way. It's come back chopped up just to fit a seasonal narrative and then cycled back out. And knowing what we know now, none of us would take that trade. None of us would ever accept sunsetting. You got us on the first half. We accepted it the first time because we thought, okay, sure, take it out of the game, bring it back to us better. Sure. But now that we know what we know, if at any point in the future Bungie tries to present us another thing that they're trying to do with other words of honey, I don't think many of us are going to believe it. There's a distrust there, which obviously goes against the revenue model, right? What is it? Earn trust and then cash out, right? So point is, this has been a very bad look for Bungie. And Bungie has still not been able to come back truly from this right here. This has been one of those things that I've seen from multiple of you that have quit over the years. You said sunsetting is why you quit, and I completely understand why. They took away Mountaintop. Here's the thing. The DCV did not have to exist for Pinnacles to be sunset. That's how you roped in the PvP crowd. You were like, hey, PvP guys, are you getting tired of dying from Recluse and Mountaintop? Guess what? We're going to introduce DCV and sunsetting. But dude, those things are still in the game. They could have just sunset without the DCV. Or they could have just went in there and done what they've already done here recently, or done over the past few years, which is actually individually go in there and nerf those weapons. Dealt with those weapons individually, which is what they should have done at the very beginning. But I don't think those are one and the same. I think that's just a narrative pusher. I don't think that Pinnacle weapons was something that they were really targeting. I think at the end of the day, they needed a way to extend content over the years, and this was the game plan. Take things, put it in the DCV, chop it up, sell it back in some way, give it to us in seasons, and get a couple more years out. The question is, what were you buying time for? Were you buying time for Lightfall? Can't be. That came out terrible. There's a lot of good things that came from Lightfall, but for it to be the thing that we were hoping it would be, the Infinity War that we were hoping for, can't be. Were you buying time for Final Shape? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It's a lot of that is a lot of weight, right? I don't know if Final Shape can live up to that. When you see all the content that was taken out of the game and say this stuff had to die, this stuff had to go for Final Shape to be what it's going to be, that's a lot to live up to. And did this stuff go away to buy time for a Destiny 3? All right, I told you my thoughts on Destiny 3, guys. I don't think Destiny 3 is going to happen, not anytime soon. If it does happen, it will be way, way into the future. I think Bungie was buying time and saving money in whatever way they possibly could. And as we've seen and heard, they've obviously have a very high burn rate, and money is obviously an issue. And so buying time and just trying to make it into the next year. And then they got the big buyout with Sony, and now they're just trying to make it a marathon. Just my opinion. We'll see what happens though.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.